Welcome to Post-Traumatic Thriving, where we explore life's toughest issues, along with the art, science, and stories of resilience. Please be advised that our guests share their raw stories of addiction, abuse, crime, and tragedy, along with tips to survive and thrive. And now, here are our hosts, Dr.RandallBell and Tanya Brown.
Welcome back to Post-Traumatic Thriving. I am Dr.RandallBell. I'm joined by my wonderful co-host, Tanya Brown.
Hi, everyone. Hi, Randy.
Hi, and our wonderful guest, Rhonda Hart, who's been very brave. If you didn't get a chance to listen to that episode, and it's important because Rhonda is a real face behind a real school shooting, and you get a sense of the complexity and the deep, horrific nature of the voices behind the statistics of school shootings, and they're remarkably, sadly, very, very common. So welcome back, Rhonda. Glad you're with us, and thank you for your bravery in the last episode. Just to recap from my memory, you were kind of growing up in Alaska and Texas and around the country. Your parents went through a divorce, which is never fun for a kid. You had step siblings, a stepmom. That sounds like it didn't go ideally, and you joined the military, got an education, and then added a whole new awareness of buses and bus driver competitions.
Bus driver competition.
And you got married, had 2 kids, a daughter and a son, and then you were divorced. But for the first time, it sounds like, I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, things were kind of looking pretty good. You know, you're on your own, you're happily single, you are a son and a daughter going to school. They seem pretty happy. And then this horrific day in 2018, where you went through every kid's or every parent's nightmare, where their kid was sadly murdered in a school shooting. And so we've talked about that actual day and the surreal nature of sitting at the Olive Garden with a friend the day of the murder, normal life is going on around you, and you're yet dealing with this utterly shocking reality. Can you kind of tell us any more about that day and then the days to follow?
So, I just wanted to stand up in the Olive Garden and just say, what the hell? Do you guys not know what just happened, 20 minutes down the road? But I didn't. And I think I managed to sleep that night, probably did not. And then the next day, which would have been a Saturday, they wanted us to come to the Resiliency Center, and we had to get there's a lot of paperwork that comes with a mass shooting. You have to talk to everybody in Texas. And so we had to get all that accomplished. I had to pick up my son from his friend's house and tell him what had happened. And then the next big obstacle was coordinating all of my friends and family from across the country that were going to come in for the funeral, because this is, again, this is really morbid, but this is real talk from mass shootings. There's a process. So they do the crime scene and they take the remains away, and then they have to go to the county medical examiner to get the full autopsy reports, right? And so they're at the county medical examiner for however many days it takes. And then they have to go to the funeral home, and they have to, and this was really morbid, but Kimberly was one of the last kids to get the autopsy report, the full examination done. And then there was, I think, 4 funeral homes that offered to do our services for us. And and they set a set amount. So we didn't pay. There's a fund with the state of Texas that pays like $5,000 or $6,000 for your funeral in a mass tragedy event like this. And so all the funeral homes like kept their price right at that. They didn't charge us a dime more, which was really great. And then it was like logistically, like waiting for the medical examiner to finish. And we had to meet with the funeral homes and plan the funerals and planning like celebration of lives. All of my friends and family had to come in. It was like, okay, so-and-so's on this flight and mom's on this flight and dad's here and here's this hotel and that hotel. And it was bananas just coordinating everybody and driving back and forth to Houston airport. I don't know how many times. And coordinating celebration of life and, you know, certain like Jimmy Changa's and certain other restaurants in the area, they offered their catering for us if we were going to have a big celebration of life. And then we had to like logistically, you had to also meet with the pastor and the church or the location or wherever you were going to have your funeral home or your funeral. And again, like I'm not a religious person, but there was a couple of churches in the area that offered up their spaces because they had large seating capabilities, they had large parking lots, they had the AV capabilities. And so it was like you had to coordinate your child's remains getting to the funeral home, and then they had to be cleaned and embalmed. And this is not something else that they tell you. And maybe Tanya knows about this, but you have to buy clothes for your loved one after they've been deceased and they're going to be in the casket, because the clothes that they were wearing at the crime scene, that's evidence. And it's usually been shot and it's dirty and it's gross. And so like I had to provide like undergarments for my dead child for the funeral home. Do you like socks and underwear and a long sleeve t-shirt, which they recommended.
Yeah.
And it was so surreal, like and it was May in Texas and like you couldn't find a long sleeve shirt. So I got her like a t-shirt and a zip up hoodie, I think, which is something she would have wore anyway. But it was just all of these like little logistical, like the funeral home needed a USB drive of photos to show during the ceremony and to show during the funeral. And it was like, at the same time, I wanted to stay in bed because I just fucking wanted to stay in bed, and everything hurt. Like my chest physically freaking hurt. You know, they said that poor man from Uvalde had passed away of a heart attack after he found out his wife was shot. And like, I remember like for weeks, it was just like a brick on your chest. And it wasn't necessarily a heart attack, but you're just like, fuck, this hurts. I just can't move, you know? And my dad ended up staying with us for about 6 months. He lived with me and he slept on my sofa bed. And he just made sure that everybody ate a few times a day, and he did the dishes and did the laundry. And I don't know what I would have done without that, because I did not want to get out of bed. I didn't want to eat. I didn't want to have to parent my younger child, you know, my surviving kid. I think that having the younger kid, it forced me to get out of bed every day. It forced me to do something. I had to function for my other child, but I didn't want to.
Yeah.
Not at all. And, we did the funeral, and then it was like, okay, I made arrangements for, like Kimberly's flower arrangements and things on her coffin, were intercepted after the funeral. They were intercepted by local Girl Scout troops, and they took the flowers and took them apart and rearranged them into bouquets, and they took them to the old folks home, which I loved. I know, because I didn't want the flowers to go to waste. That was a lot. There was a lot of pretty flowers, and I didn't want them to go to waste. So I kept a couple of them. And then the others were repurposed and, you know, used resources wisely. And
can we just pause there for a second? Can we back up a little bit to where was the venue for the ceremony and any memories of the ceremony itself you can share?
Yeah. So I couldn't have said goodbye to my child without having like a proper like goodbye. And I sat on it for a little while. And one of the funeral homes that offered their services was Crowder Funeral Home of Galveston County, Texas. And the Crowders have this property that's kind of out in the boonies, as far as you're considered in this town. And it's kind of out in the boonies, and they've got this really nice plot of land and like a fire circle, and it's on a lake. And they have a really nice house, like Airbnb style house. And we had camped there we had camped there in January for my son for his Cub Scout pack. And so when I saw, and we had met Mr. Crowder at that camping trip. And so when I saw Mr. Crowder in the room with the funeral directors, I was like, oh, I know you. I'm going with Mr. Crowder. Okay, you're a familiar face. And I knew that I couldn't say goodbye to Kimberly without a proper Girl Scout campfire night. So that's exactly what we freaking did. And we went to the Crowder family location, their R&R spot, which is where we had camped. But we had catering. We had Mexican food. We had Italian food. People brought their lawn chairs. It was right at dusk. The Girl Scouts had contacted me. I had contacted them like on shooting night, and because they had put out a statement like, we're very sad for the shooting in Santa Fe. And I messaged them back, and I was like, you actually lost a sister scout. And so they reached out and they helped with a lot of her celebration of life. And they said, I want s'mores and campfire and songs and glow sticks.
Oh,
and that's exactly what they came through with. And it was so sweet. And we stood around and we sang campfire songs. And we sang her favorite songs. And we had marshmallows and s'mores. And her celebration of life was amazing that night. And then for her funeral, I said, I definitely want this to have a Girl Scout touch. And we had a troop that came in and did a proper flag ceremony. And they repeated the Girl Scout law and the Girl Scout promise. And one of the top singers in the council, the lady that teaches all the songs when you're at adult training lessons, because that exists, she brought her guitar and sang God Bless My Underwear, Pink Pajamas, and Scout Vespers. And then Kimberly's camp counselor from camp the summer before, this young lady, her camp name was Osprey. And because that's the thing at Girl Scout camp, you're never Miss Rhonda, you're Miss So-and-so fun name until the end of camp. And then you find out what the counselor's real name is. And Osprey came, and it gets me to this day. she played taps at the end of Kimberly's funeral.
Ooh, that's heavy.
That always gets me. Oh, and let me back this up too, because Kimberly was also a Harry Potter fan. So one of my friends, I'm in a Harry Potter meetup group for grown-ups, and we get together like once a month and we do an activity and we talk about Harry Potter. And it's a lot of fun. And Kimberly had been a member of the group. Like we would do trivia and craft nights and stuff together. And so my whole like Harry Potter club came too. And one of my favorite memories was one of my friends from the club, Jeff, is a choral singer for Houston church groups. And I asked him to sing Hallelujah at the beginning of the funeral. And there was this big debate on our chat board about what people should wear to Kimberly's funeral, if they should wear wizard robes or appropriate funeral clothes. And I said, I really don't care, whatever you guys are comfortable in. I want you to have fun. And my friend Jeff sang Hallelujah for my daughter at her funeral in full-blown Hufflepuff robes and scarf.
I love it. Good.
That's awesome.
And
It's awesome.
it was probably one of the most unique funerals that had ever happened in that. And at some point, the Harry Potter Club did a fundraiser, and because Kimberly was a Ravenclaw, and they organized this beautiful, like the wreaths, the flower, like placard things. Mm-hmm. They had raised all this money, and they had organized for a Ravenclaw crest made out of flowers to be brought to her funeral.
Wow.
And I was like, it was beautiful. It was absolutely beautiful. And then they did something else behind the scenes where they tried to get everybody that was coming to buy a light up wand, right? They all bought them on Amazon or at Walmart or wherever. And, the church interior, the room was kind of dim anyway. And at some point when we were like the pastor had done the eulogies and everything were all done and the lights were still kind of dim, the whole Harry Potter club stood up and they were like, wands up for Kimberly. And they all stood up out of their chairs and they lit their little wands like they do in the movies when Dumbledore dies. And it was so cute. It was so sweet. So her funeral and her celebration of life was like, it couldn't have got any more like Kimberly than it was. You know what I mean? Like I put a lot of thought into that. And I'm so glad that I did. And that I did all of those little touches and I didn't, go off and do like your traditional, like your standard funeral. Cause people still talk about it, even 4 years later. So yeah,
that's worth talking about. That's just epic.
Yeah.
It was pretty epic. I was like, she's going to get a really good send off.
Oh, that's awesome.
Well, and I love the campfire story too. That's the campfire.
I love that. Yeah.
We do. So we do campfire every year. I do a little campfire and her friends come and my friends come and, we have marshmallows every year, right around. It's not ever on the exact day of shooting day, but it's between shooting day and the end of May. We set aside like one night and the cast of visitors and friends always changes, but we always have campfire and s'mores at the end of May to remember Kimberly.
It's sweet. Yeah. It's like your own little vigil, like we do with our candlelight vigil for Nicole and Ron.
Yeah.
I kind of want to go back because when you were talking about like all the preparations to, you think that, when somebody dies, it's like, okay, that's it. Like, okay, funeral home. No. There's so much organization. And I want to acknowledge, here during a time when you're supposed to just like be in bed and grieve and cry and feel and eat bonbons or not eat or throw up. Here you have to, there's a lot of planning and preparations that people, and picking out the clothes. That's the worst.
Yeah. Yeah. They don't let you like, there is no rest for the wicked.
No.
There's no rest. Mm-mm. And because it was, and Tanya, you know what I'm talking about. It would have been different if like, because it was a mass tragedy, it was a mass shooting. This was national media, right? Mm-hmm. At the same time, I want to like grieve and rest and not shower for 4 days. Mm-hmm. And, want to be that person. I'm still having to like plan funerals and all this. Mm-hmm. And then at the same time, like, my family needed privacy and we needed a place for everybody to stay. So we were at a hotel. And at the same time, I'm juggling national media. I'm juggling Anderson Cooper was my first ever on-screen interview. Bless his, like, I still love Anderson Cooper to this day. He was so kind.
He is.
I'm juggling this media and that media. And I had gone to my rental house one day to pick up more of my mental health medication because I didn't grab enough. And I was at my house for half an hour and there's the freaking Washington Post knocking on my door. Like, how the fuck did you get my address?
Yeah. It's very invasive, when there is something.
It's very invasive.
It's like your private lives are totally gone.
Yeah. And like, that's when I came out, I started a Twitter account and I started like, I knew from that night, I knew that, and we'll get into this at some point, but I knew I was like, this was not like a Santa Fe safety issue. I was like, this is a nationwide, there was a loophole in a gun law. And this is like fucking Donald Trump. And, this is like fucking fuck Ted Cruz. Like I knew, like I was pissed at them already. You know what I mean? My son is texting me. So that's why you see my hand. Because I'm on my phone and I have a little tripod and everything's set up. But I knew like right away, I was like, this is a fucking Washington, D.C. issue. And so I was trying to do that and start that activism as well. And, the Fox 26 wants an interview and ABC 13. And then this is another thing, Tanya, maybe you can testify to this too. And then all of the donations that come in from across the country of all of the objects that people think that you need to get through your grief. So like blankets and quilts and teddy bears and Bibles and CDs and artwork and carved crosses and plants and, and then you have to go and like get your loved ones' belongings. Like you have to get their backpack and you know what I mean? And it's just like all of this shit. Yeah, I really I had a storage unit for a while because it was so much stuff that I didn't know what to do with. And it felt like having bad juju in my house. I couldn't have Kimberly's objects near me. And so I had a storage unit that was away from my apartment. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And then you have to sort through, like we sorted through all her t-shirts and, a bundle went to this person to make a quilt and to that to make a quilt. And you have to donate things to the Goodwill and you have packing and I moved houses and it was just like, oh my God, nobody tells you that there's so much extra stuff. And I just, again, we'll get to that. I was telling the Uvalde families, I was like, don't be surprised if you have to like get a storage unit to deal with all that stuff. And they laughed at me and I was like, no, I'm serious.
Yeah, no, I remember that day Nicole was killed on Sunday. We found out on Monday on the 13th and her house was being looted or was about to be looted. And we went in on Wednesday. I tell you not, we didn't even get a storage unit. We went in, we cleaned everything up and we had what used to be my bedroom now was like a storage unit. So like one room in the house had all of her stuff. And Because it does. It has to happen fast. And, and I think that's really important for people to understand. And, this is your experience that you can give families who are going through, the same thing, where I'm here for you, because there's more than just, hey, my kid died and a funeral. Yep. There's a lot more.
There's so much more behind the scenes.
Yeah.
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 And so it was so much just dealing with the crap, and then I had to deal with, like, the school district had a liaison that, like, wanted us to go to counseling and wanted us to sign up for this and that. And I said, why am I going to sign up for counseling at your grief center when I have my own therapy? That's another thing. I was going to therapy at least once a week, every Tuesday at 2:00.
Good.
I had a standing therapy appointment with my doctor. And then I had appointments with my psychiatrist because I was already on a lower dose of anxiety medication, and we had to increase the anxiety medication. I had to get on a good sleeping tablet. I had to get on a good depression pill. There is definite better life through chemical intervention, and I'm a big fan of whatever medication you need to get through this.
Mm-hmm.
And I still daily take medication.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you never know.
Yep. I'm an advocate for it, so
yep.
If you got to do whatever you got to do to stay on this side of the grass, right?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah. And we'll get to this, but when I met Uvalde families the other day, I was like, all of y'all need therapy. If you haven't started already, you all need it. And I credit my therapist for me being able to unload all of that emotional baggage and why I'm, standing upright right now. Because there were some nights that I was like, dear God, please give me a heart attack.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where you do want to die. Absolutely. I mean, I witnessed that with my family. And I'm so glad that you're talking about, going to therapy and, sharing that with other people, because we can talk to all of our friends all we want. And that's just talking about it. But going to a professional, you're processing. It's a safe place to, because everybody's experiencing it different. My sisters and myself, we dealt with that totally different. And even when my mom died, like, we all grieved so differently. So thank you for mentioning that mental health piece and encouraging families to go to a professional and process that. It's critical, because that will bite you in the butt. If you don't, it will bite you in the butt later on.
And I tried, I had continued to talk to my regular, just my regular counselor, and she's probably like a licensed clinical social worker or whatever. And at some point I told her, I said, I think I want to try EMDR.
Good.
And so she sent me to EMDR at the VA facility. So let me back this up, that all of my care that I've received since the shooting has all been through the Veterans Administration, and they will help you navigate this. You just have to really not take any crap from them and really advocate for yourself. Mm-hmm. But if you're a veteran with this level of loss, they can manage you. You just have to fight for it. So let me say that.
Yeah.
And so to get to the EMDR therapy was a 45-minute drive one way. And then I would do the therapy, and then I would be all kinds of discombobulated, and I would actually feel worse after doing EMDR. And so I did 2 or 3 sessions of it, and I decided that maybe wasn't my cup of tea for this trauma. And I just wanted to continue with my first lady that I was using, and I just stayed with her and continued to talk to my psychiatrist about medication levels and stuff. And so somehow we all, between the 3, and I had to bring in my primary care, because when my trauma gets too much, my body decides that this random body part is gonna freaking hurt. Like, I pinched my neck early after the shooting. It was probably late summer. I pinched a nerve, and I slept weird one night, and I had a very bad dream. And I woke up, and like, my neck was locked up, and it traveled all the way down to my pinky and my thumb, were like moving of their own accord.
Mm-hmm.
They were like shivering and they shouldn't have been. And so I had to bring my primary care provider into this care loop. And like I've had to take physical therapy, medication, and mental cognitive therapy to get through this. And it's not uncommon. There's a book called The Body Keeps Score. I haven't read it yet.
It's a great book. Yeah. One of our other guests talked about it. It's a great book.
I can tell you without a doubt, I have never suffered from more aches and pains and ailments after the shooting than before shooting. My immune system just hit the tank.
Mm-hmm.
And my friend, I have a friend named John, and he was a substitute teacher inside of Santa Fe High School on the day of the shooting. And we text and we hang out. We went to the Astros game together to celebrate our birthdays earlier in the month. And we can text each other between probably the 15th to the 19th of the month. And we can say, what body part hurts now? And there's always something.
Yep. And the
it's
body
like clockwork.
The body does keep the score. Trauma gets hold. It's somatic. It all trauma.
Yep.
People think, okay, you're going through something, but yeah, you've got the aches, the pains, the shakes, the headaches.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah. There's a connection between the physiology and the emotional aspect. And there's a lot to unpack with what you said so far, because let's take them one at a time. The media, it sounds like the media treated you pretty well. We had Jessie Buttafuoco on, who the media didn't treat her quite as well, but it sounds like your experience was more positive.
Supportive.
Is that right, Rhonda?
Yeah. I definitely, I did not start doing media interviews for a couple of days. And even the shooting day, we were at the reunification point, which was one of their old gyms and administrative buildings. And across the street was the local grocery store, HEB. And the media were just lined up like little sharks. Waiting for us to come out of the front of the building. And I remember very specifically after they told us what had happened and Laura May and I were going to leave. And I think I was going to step outside and officially call my dad, because that was weird. I was texting with my dad and he's saying, I'm seeing you on TV live at this reunification point, which was the first time my dad ever saw me on TV, and it wouldn't be the last. And he's like, what's going on? And by the end of the day, I went to go and call him, and I went out the front door, and I think Laura May like snatched me up by the collar, and she's like, no, you need to go out in the back parking lot and make that call. Mm-hmm. And so there was a definite line drawn for the media for Santa Fe, and a lot of the community didn't want to talk, and they actually pushed the media out at some point. And but I've always been like, if someone sticks a camera in front of my face, I'm going to talk.
Yeah. Well, and you know that about yourself, and if that's what you feel is right for you, do it.
That's advocacy.
Yeah. And the media has been, the reason we're having this conversation is because of People Magazine. Mm-hmm. Tanya knows some people at People Magazine, and we're always looking for wonderful guests like yourself who bring something of value to the table. And, so we can thank the People Magazine. Mm-hmm. You've been profiled there.
Casey Baker.
Yeah. No, they a lot of the media does a great job. And I'm sure glad to hear that you had a good experience with Anderson Cooper. He's terrific.
Yeah. He really is.
Yeah, he's so sweet. He's very kind, and he's been active with shooting victim families as far back as my friends Sandy and Lonnie Phillips lost their daughter Jessie in the Aurora, Colorado movie theater shooting 10 years ago.
Oh, wow.
So he's been on this grid for a long, long time. And for me, it depends. Like, okay, do I do I align with this view? Like, I'm certainly never going to go on the major Fox News. You know what I mean? You won't see me on like Alex Jones, but he's kind of off the record anyway. And then there's certain times like around like shooting time, like every year for the shooting, I have like a handful of trusted media contacts that I'll reach out and be like, hey, do you need anything from me this month? How do you need a yearly update? And they're like, nope. And so I kind of draw that line too, where at certain points I will only talk to my trusted contacts.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'll only interview with so-and-so.
Yeah.
So yeah, it really, the media is definitely a tricky beast.
Yeah.
Sure
and you
is.
seem to have a good aptitude for navigating it, because some of it can be miserable and some can be great.
They're your best friend, but your worst enemy.
And the other thing to unpack is I loved what you were saying about going back to the services and celebration for Kimberly and the sense of ritual and how the community came together. The pastor from the church. Do you want to shout out to the church that supported you there?
Oh yeah, that was Clear Creek Community Church in Webster, Texas, the Egret Bay campus, and I had Yancey Arrington do her services, and he did a really great like non-denominational kind of service, and he did a little bit from the Bible because that's his job. But I remember very distinctly he said, I'm not going to say Kimberly's in a better place, because she's not. The best place for her to be would be, here on the earth with her family, and not have to, be shot in a school shooting.
Yeah.
But they were super kind and very generous with their, there was several of us that ended up using that facility for our funerals. Yeah, they're great. So they had a high-tech setup.
Yeah, Cedar Creek was the name?
Clear Creek.
Oh, Clear
Community
Creek.
Church.
Excuse me. Yeah, Clear Creek. Thank you. And the Girl Scouts. And I love the campfire thing. That's just so cool. And the sense of ritual.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Cubs,
Girl Scouts.
Girl Scouts.
San Jacinto Council.
Yeah. And what I'm trying to do is kind of pull out tips for those who are going through a traumatic thing to say, hey, these things work nicely for you. And maybe if someone else is listening and going through trauma, they can realize, hey, a sense of ritual with whatever works, the community coming together. There's a lot of components moving to help you and your family move through. You don't get over these things, you get through them, and it takes some really wonderful community support to get through it. And the media was positive in your case.
Yeah.
Lots of good things going on here.
Yeah.
My thing that and I struggled a lot with Santa Fe, the community, when I started speaking out against gun violence, and this is a politic issue, they really started to attack me. And so I had to draw like a definite line in the sand with them. And my biggest piece of advice is anybody that's watched Netflix and seen that Marie Kondo show, I tell other survivors, if this event or this thing or this object, if it sparks joy for you and makes you happy, then you can do the thing or do the event or keep the object or whatever. But if anything doesn't spark joy for you, or if an interview makes you feel icky or you don't like this object, like, you don't have to do that. You don't have to attend every fight that you've been invited to.
You're right.
And fuck all of them, because you're the survivor and you're the one that's still standing upright. So really, like, fuck everybody.
Yeah. No, you're right.
That's real talk.
Like, real talk.
Real talk.
Real talk. You have, and this is another thing that people don't realize. Tanya, I don't know about this, if you guys experience this, but like, after your loved one dies, the media and everybody in the community think that, like, they have the copyright rights to your loved one's image, and they can use like whatever image that they want to, even if you hate it, right? Even if it's like her worst photo ever and they're blasting it all over. People don't realize that. And I've had to ask so many websites and journals and like, could you please not use that picture? Because I hate it. It's ugly. I don't like it. Here's a better one.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Or like, if your loved one's name is going out to raise money, like a t-shirt company, this happened. A t-shirt, like a small business t-shirt maker in this area, put a t-shirt out with all of the kids' names on it. And I don't know if they ever ended up donating money to us, to the families, but it's like, no, I never gave you permission to put my kid's name on your t-shirt. And then I'm going to see that. This was a big trigger. This was a big content warning for me earlier, is just seeing all the t-shirts and like the bumper stickers and all of this shit with my kid's name on it. I was like, no, I don't want to see my kid's name out there because she died.
Yeah.
That was very, very upsetting for me in the beginning.
Absolutely. Yeah. You know, you go to the grocery stores, it's on the Inquirer, it's in newspapers. I mean, wherever you go, you see it. And yeah, I mean, my God, people were making millions off of Nicole's murder.
Oh my God.
Millions.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
Book deals, you know, it's like, I mean, it's, and you know what? It's like, my God, I would hate to imagine you walking down the street and seeing somebody, whether it's you or another parent, see their child's face on a t-shirt. Like, people can be very, very insensitive, you know, but this is the world we live in. It's very sensationalized. People want to, they want to,
people
piggyback
don't realize that there are real
families,
flesh and blood
behind it,
humans behind these stories. I was given a lecture off somewhere in the Midwest, and somebody said something negative about your sister Denise, and this is a room full of hundreds of people there, and I'm in front of the crowd, and I shut that guy down in a second. I said, "You're talking about my friend.
Thank you.
You know, and you don't know her. I do." And you're totally out of line and totally inappropriate talking about a real person who isn't here to defend herself. I went off on the guy, and I'd do it again.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, so I get it. Yeah. So I think I've seen a number of components in play here as we've talked through the survival stage of accepting the outreach of the community, the church, the Girl Scouts, the media, the good media, and other things, realizing that there are bad guys and bullies out there that will exploit the situation, monetize the situation, that kind of thing. Anything else? I just want to kind of ask you before we get into the Thrive episode, in terms of advice that you have for others or things that worked for you, particularly Rhonda, in the survival stage, in terms of kind of getting your footing once again in this new reality of being on this planet without your daughter.
This sounds really, there's a couple of things, and this sounds really corny, but something that really helped me was, okay, so I'm also the kind of person that goes to comic book style fan conventions. I'm a big, I just went to Harry Potter. I just went to LeakyCon in August, right? And that's my happy place, is a Harry Potter fan convention. I'm just that person. And there's some old convention advice that also applies to somebody that's dealing with grief. And I've kind of modified it a little bit. And I love anything that's like a list or a countdown. And so I say drink 5 glasses of water, or like 5 bottles of water a day. You need to try and get 4 hours of sleep. You need to eat 3 times a day, even if it's just like little nibbles, like stock your fridge with little like yogurt cups. And we really like sushi and like hummus cups. And then you need to brush your teeth twice a day, and you need to take 1 shower every day. And then after that, like everything else is just gravy. Like you did your little self-care and you're still alive and you're good. And then another friend of mine sent me a list pad that you can get on Amazon. And it was like, I took my vitamins today. I changed my socks. People I have to call reluctantly, and how my mood was. And for me, that little list pad in the beginning was actually really very helpful because it helped me like compartmentalize and put everything down on paper.
Yeah.
And I don't know about you, Tanya, but I had a pretty good memory before shooting. And then after shooting and after trauma, that just went out the freaking window.
It sure did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
you'll get it back. You'll get it back if you haven't already.
Like,
but yeah, it's a fog. It's a fog.
Yeah. It's definitely a fog. It's the blur. And so anything like writing lists, if you need to, as a survivor, or color coding things, or whatever you have to do to get through the day, do it.
Yeah.
And like I said, take your vitamins every day and change your underpants, and that's good.
Get out of bed. Even just getting out of bed is huge.
Yeah.
It's like give yourself a pat on the back just for getting out of bed, and then give yourself a huge hug when you make your bed. I mean, it's those little steps. I actually have a question. When, because a lot of people experience this when somebody dies, whether it's tragic or, by natural causes, everybody is there in the beginning. Everyone, it's like they're bringing you food and whatever, they're calling you. And then days go by and it's like, oh my God, where are you? Where'd you disappear to? So you're so lucky that you had your dad there to help you navigate all of that, because I noticed after Nicole was killed, everybody was there initially, but afterwards it was like, except for the media, they were there. They were constant, right?
Yeah.
But everybody disappeared. And that's another part of grief right there.
Yep. And like you said, everybody shows up in the beginning, and because it's a mass national tragedy, the donations are going to come in for the National Compassion Fund, and you're going to get this benefit and this barbecue benefit to raise money and da, 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 da. But one of the unique things, and this is across the country, one of the unique things is there is zero long-term care for survivors of mass shootings. There's no pension benefits. There's no healthcare benefits. There's no mental health care. There's nothing. To the point where a couple of years ago, a Columbine survivor that had been paralyzed needed help paying his rent, and he had to start a GoFundMe. Mm-hmm. There's like zero long-term care for us. So folks really need to be like lining that up as best they can, and they need to find their village of people that are going to like bring them a meal when they absolutely need one.
Yeah.
And I've kind of found that later on down the road, I've kind of found like a new group of people for like emotional support, like with my lobby groups and, like Sandy and Lonnie and all those people. But there was kind of a gray area where like the community had retreated, and I had, blocked myself from Santa Fe, and I didn't really have anybody.
Mm-hmm.
So it was it was a little weird.
Yeah.
A lot of dimensions to the survival stage that are new on this episode.
Yep.
I love your list. I grabbed a pen.
Yeah.
I just want to see, Rhonda, if I got them all. Water, drink lots of water.
Vitamins.
I just had 2 separate doctors tell me I have to drink a pint with each meal, or not a pint, a whole liter of water with each meal.
Wow.
Anyway, so water, eating,
Sleeping.
3 times, sleeping, brush your teeth, shower, make lists. Did I miss anything there?
Take your vitamins.
Vitamins. Yeah. Okay. That's just.
And clean underwear.
And clean underwear.
And clean underwear.
That's essential. All right. Wow. Well, is this? I'm anxious to get into the next episode with all the great advocacy you're doing. Is there any? I'm going to give you the last word, Rhonda. Any final things on the survival stage? Are you good to go?
Just to make sure to advocate, be your own best advocate. If, like I said, if something feels icky to you as a survivor, don't do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And you mentioned the kind of the brain fog of the trauma and memory lapses as a result of the trauma. I just want to point out, having studied this clinically, is that that's totally normal. When we go into the fight, flight, freeze mode, which is exactly what happens, particularly in a horrific trauma that you went through, Rhonda, your outer human brain turns off and your inner reptilian brain with the amygdala at the base of the brain turns on. That's not designed to store memories. It's designed to get you into a survival mode and get you, to the safe place. It's kind of like the evolutionary stages of the lion is chasing you, and how do you preserve your life? It's not there to think through things through the complexities of the mammal brain or the human brain. So this is totally normal, and all people who are processing trauma need to accept it for what it is.
Yeah.
It's nature's way of keeping you alive, but not necessarily thriving, but just preserve yourself. So,
I mean, did you find yourself like putting milk in the cabinet instead of the refrigerator?
Yeah.
I did that. Or leaving your car on for 8 hours while you're at work, or leaving your car door open. See, that I did stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for anybody who's listening and that's happening to you, excuse me, where it's like, that's normal. Don't give yourself such a hard time. Yeah.
So, we'll be right back on the Thrive episode here on Post-Traumatic Thriving, where we dive, survive, or thrive.
The choice is yours.
Thanks for supporting our podcast. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe, and follow us on your favorite social media. For books, merchandise, or to donate, visit CoreIQ.com. Post-Traumatic Thriving is produced by CoreIQ, a nonprofit with a mission to teach the life skills we all need but are not taught in school. CoreIQ and the Post-Traumatic Thriving podcast are for informational purposes only and do not provide medical or mental health advice. Always consult with your licensed medical and mental health care providers.